amazing viewers. Thank you so much for joining me on my program once again. I appreciate you wherever you are connecting from. If you have not subscribed to my channel, please kindly subscribe to my channel. Click the notification bell so that you'll be notified each time I upload a video. You will be among the first to receive it. Thank you so much and remain blessed.
Security across the different parts of the country, and we still have with us Mr. Agioli Abe, who is a retired commissioner of police, and also joining us via Zoom is also Mr. Zubair Abdurauf, who is a community leader, Beningwari in Kaduna State, and also former managing director, CEO of Kaduna State Media Corporation. Mr. Abe, let me quickly ask you, you've heard the submissions of Mr. Abdurauf, and I'm sure that you must be worried about what is happening in Kaduna. The governor is currently suggesting that communities along the Abuja-Kaduna Expressway be relocated. Do you think that could be a probable solution to solving the constant kidnappings that we see along the Abuja-Kaduna highway?
Thank you so much, Amabe. I think I listened to the governor too, and I want to believe that he was not properly being understood, or out of the seriousness of the issue, he came up with these options. But I think, with respect to Governor El-Rufai, I think it wasn't a good approach to resolving this community problem. These people, by accident of birth, happen to come from that geographical location. And because of failure of government actions, we can no longer safeguard and protect these people. They deserve to be protected. Instead of relocating them, we should provide them all the needed protection they can. It's quite important now that we have identified a particular area of the criminal elements operating. This is the more reason we should now draw up strategies to ensure that this community is safe from this form of criminalities coming into their communities. So I don't think it is properly placed to relocate a community because of a crime. And the community is not so large to the extent that we cannot police. I think we have a good reason to police that community effectively so that these criminals will not have access to that community.
Mr. Abe, let's return to the point about political motivation. And during the break, we took a quote by one of the governors from the Southeast who said that these boys think they will profit if the APC government fails. And, you know, to add to that, another governor of the Southeast has said that the killings, you know, the insecurity, the unrest is politically motivated. He, in fact, threatened to name those behind, politicians behind the attacks in the Southeast. But then again, they don't go ahead to make good their threat. Do politicians help the situation if they go about the insecurity in the Southeast this way, you know, by projecting that indeed they are aware of those behind the killings, and then nothing really comes out of, you know, the political talk?
I think they should stop politicizing these issues. If politicians know exactly those who are perpetrating these killings, they should come out and name them instead of keep putting people in suspense. Name the criminals, identify them so that we should be able to know exactly which people are causing unrest in the Southeast. And we should stop this issue of we know them and at the end we hear nothing about it. Like I said, honestly speaking, time has come for us to identify a particular group that are championing a cause, legitimate cause. Because there are times you must have a ceasefire in a war situation. The Ipob, the Masop, but this time I ask, who are we negotiating with? We should be negotiating with the leaders of a particular group. And you see, this issue will not have a headway in as long as they believe that their leader is incarceration and you are negotiating for them to cease some of these hostilities. I think we should really think about what should be done in the Southeast to remedy this crisis from escalating to a more broader issues.
Speaking of what should be done, it was said during the Southeast Regional meeting with Mr. President just about some weeks ago that if that political representation at the center, which is the age-long cry of the Southeast region, if it is realized in 2023, peace will become a reality in the Southeast. If this is achieved, do you think that it will happen?
I think this is not just all about them actualizing the 2023 ambition. It's about fairness. If the Southeast people believe that they are fairly treated, I think we will see a downtrend in some of these hostilities. But for now, we should be able to really examine whether or not they actually have a case. Are these people actually fairly treated? Their complaints, are they genuine? When we begin to examine this, and they will now begin to consider the position of their leadership. Honestly, I do not believe that the people whose leader is incarceration will want to negotiate properly with you. So I think we should review the position of their leader who is in incarceration and see exactly what we can sit on the table to discuss with him about. And because we've been on this issue for quite some time, trying to negotiate. The central government in the Southeast have been trying to speak with their leaders. But at this stage we must face realities and look at exactly who are we discussing with. And I think we should consider discussing with their leader.
A cogent questions there. Who are we discussing with, and what are their agitations? Would you be discussing without their leader on the table as well? I'd like to bring my next poser to you, Mr. Zubair. And you said a number of interesting things, and Mawpe also asked you about implications. Are you getting a sense that even though the state government also acknowledged the very real presence of Ansaru in Kaduna, are you getting a sense that the state government is helpless in the face of the presence of Ansaru in Kaduna, even though you tell us that they are helping to keep the peace in some parts of the state?
Well, let me go back to what my colleague has just said. If you look at the situation, the state government is rather helpless, because when you look at the situation, the state government does not control the security apparatus. Whatever the state government will do, it has to go in line with the national security agenda, or what the national security programs that the government have to curtail these problems of armed banditry, or also the insecurity general in Kaduna State and the neighboring Kaduna State. And so also, if you look at the whole situation, it is not about politics. You look at, the situation on the ground. One, the complicity among the locals, and also the government inaction are also on the other side. So when you look at the government inaction and also the complexity among the locals, and in which the locals does not have any other option rather than to align themselves with this Ansaru group to have protection, because the government is not protecting them. This is what is happening, particularly where the Ansaru are more dominant, particularly in two local government areas of Birnungwari and Giwa local government areas. So therefore, what is to be done now is to look at all those problems that emanating from all these areas, and also to look at the failures, of both the communities and also the government on the other side, to be able to bring out, a kind of, action plan to deal with the situation. So therefore, if you look at it, when you look at even the Ansaru of a thing that you are talking about, it is not only in Bernungwari, even the last, train attack that, that made a lot of people, abducted. And up to now, nobody knew, that Ansaru has infiltrated into those areas. Therefore, what the state government is saying, or the government is saying, that those communities living along Abuja-Kaduna Highway need to be relocated so that, the armed personnel should take over those areas. Because those are the dangerous areas of Katari, Irijana.
Mr. Abdurrauf, let me just quickly ask you. You said something. I said nobody knew that there is an infiltration of the Ansaru that you mentioned to the magnitude that we have. But you also said the other time that it's something everybody knows is happening. So how come the security, it sounds like doublespeak to me, because, I mean, if you say no one knew that there is such a magnitude of infiltration, is that to say that the security agencies themselves are not aware?
Well, the security agents, is not, when I'm saying that is, when you look at, the presence of this Ansaru, it started like a joke, that the Ansaru are having, a kind of clash between them and these armed bandits or terrorists, as we may call them. So, you see, the locals thought that this Ansaru who came in form of, trying to put people to be more knowledgeable in their religious activities, they now turn, to be fighting some people who are overrunning communities. What I'm saying is the magnitude of this thing is nobody knew that Ansaru can be able to travel from where they are located to even this part that, that the Kaduna State is contemplating of relocating those communities of Akiligo and whatever. So the most dangerous part of it is because of lack of, a kind of political will on the side of the government that control the security apparatus, and also the state government that is helpless because they don't control, the security apparatus. Therefore, the locals are being left with no other option, is either to, defend themselves or to be part and parcel of these terrorists so that they can get protection. Well, so it's a kind of double-edged sword.
Well, you told Maokwe the other time that, the implications are very, very dire in the long run. Yeah. In order to avert an impending crisis, maybe within the next few months or few years, what needs to be done now to arrest the situation? Because just as you have said, there is a massive infiltration already. It would seem as if the communities have, they have earned the trust, or the Ansaru have earned the trust of the people, or the other way around. So how do we begin to reverse the narrative so that this impending crisis doesn't consume us?
Well, there is two ways to do this thing. One, there must be a kind of synergy between the security personnel and the locals in that place. Two, there must be a way in which to de-radicalize, the communities that have been cajoled to join this Ansaru of a thing. You understand? These are the two things to be done. If you look at what happened on a Salah day, that is during the end of Ramadan, the Ansaru came out in a community called Kuyelo, Old Kuyelo in Bernungwari local government, with their, in a full military regalia, on their bikes. The locals are hailing them. So because there is no presence of the, security personnel in those areas, or rather I can say that the security personnel in those areas cannot go to those parts of the place that the Ansaru are more dominant in that areas. And that is why these people, are being, held as heroes by the communities because they give them protection against abductions or kidnappings or even what, the armed bandits, the terrorist armed bandits are doing, to their communities, cattle rustling and what have you, and also kidnapping, innocent people.
It's like deja vu, right again, Mr. Abdurrahman. Yes. What we saw in the Northeast, we're now seeing that perhaps on an even wider and much dangerous scale in the Northwest region. That's a region that has been battling banditry, well, now terrorism, now another scale of it. But this is a bit tricky because there's a religious angle to it. You said earlier that, they come and try to, teach them, religion, rights, how to go about this the right way. So there's that one, which is a very tricky one, especially in Nigeria. There's the protection which you say they offer to these people. There's also the economic angle as well. How would you then judging from what we've seen in the Northeast, which we're still battling, how can you de-radicalize a people that are so that deep in this, from the religious perspective to the economic and the protection? How can you de-radicalize or at least reach out to these people?
Well, how to, reach out to these people or to de-radicalize these people is simple. You see, first of all, we must have a kind of political will from the government to deal with the situation. Secondly, the strategy. We need to adopt a new strategy that we can be able, to see how all the security apparatus will work in synergy with each other and also to involve, the locals. So once we have that, then we'll now address the situation. Number 3 is complicity among the locals. The informants. In this situation, the informants, play a very bad role in escalating the insecurity in those areas, particularly this part of Kaduna State that we have Ansaru in Berenungwari and Giwa local government areas. Number 4 is, after having that, we need to have a kind of, bringing the locals, the volunteers, you understand, who can now give information about, where these people are. Remember, if you look at the vast nature, the forest, the Kuyambana forest, the Kamuku forest, and to some extent, where I said that this forest that lies between Berenungwari, Katsina, and also Giwa local government area, that is, when you look at this vast forest, whereby you have large chunks of mechanized farm that are not being utilized by a company, and also some of these forests that, traverse from those areas of Giwa, Berenungwari, up to Rijana, and Katari, where the government is contemplating of relocating those societies.
Pardon me, you can land on that point, sorry.
Yeah, so if we can have this kind of strategy, you understand, the political will on one hand, the strategy, the security apparatus, particularly, we need a complete strategy.
Okay.
And also galvanizing or bringing all the security apparatus in one hand, and also making the locals understand the implication of this, and also to re-radicalize those locals that already joined Ansaru.
Okay, let's take this to Mr. Abe now. I was going to add Akilibu to those communities, just Rijana, Kateri, and Akilibu. Those are the 3 communities that are being talked about on that axis, talking about relocation. But Mr. Abe, you've been in Kaduna State. This is a very messy situation that we have on our hands. Imagine people in communities having to trust terrorists to protect them from another form of terrorism, the armed bandits. And I know he's talked about, that's Mr. Our other guest, Mr. Abdurrauf, has talked about how you can de-radicalize them different ways, but the security angle. One part we don't usually talk about as much is, I mean, during that whole security report presentation, the government actually said about 101 of these terrorists, bandits, were neutralized by both the air and the land forces. So it would seem we have security presence. But when you hear that Ansaru terrorists actually have taken over an area, then it leaves, you know, much questions there that where are the security operatives? As someone who knows that terrain as a commissioner of police, what do you think is at play here such that we have terrorists actually protecting communities against other terrorists?
Yes, with due respect to the last speaker, he appears to have a broad knowledge of his environment, and which has made things easier for security agencies. A few days ago, I saw it in the news where the security agency stormed the Ipob training camp, and we are able to successfully eliminate the presence of their facilities. Now, we have a situation in the north where every information regarding the movement of these elements has been presented to us. We need to go in and overcome these situations. He was speaking as someone who has knowledge of the environment and believes that we did not know exactly that these people are coming in to become a problem to the communities. But at the security angle, we cannot claim that we do not know. That is why we have relevant agencies that present reports on the movements of these individuals into the state on daily basis. The question is, these informations gathered are not actioned to gain the purpose for which the informations were gathered for. Honestly, I look at it as either failure from the security apparatus to be able to effectively curtail these situations. Time has come that we should stop doing the talking and sit down and act. We know exactly now. The governor has, in his last speech, told us exactly the seriousness of this situation. The community leader speaking now has presented a very clear picture and even locations of these people. We should go after them. You know, previously, like you said, when I was Commissioner of Police in Kaduna State, we had a different strategy. And I think if you were following up the crime trend then, it was working. We identified these locations and committed a lot of resources to this particular location because the locations have not changed. Along Kaduna, Abuja Road, it has not changed. The crime occurs in almost the same place. And we used to have a crime strategy that prevented these people from coming out through these particular areas. And if you are following up, you know that within those periods we are talking about, we have very, very minimal issue of crime in these locations. I think we should sit back and revolve a new way of stopping this crime from occurring in this area rather than trying to find a surface solution to it. Because if you ask the community to move, have you asked the criminals to leave? No. So I think we should revolve strategy between the police, the military, and all other security agencies before. But the situation, have we pushed it to a stage that we can achieve results? I think I would say no.
In solving the problem, Mr. Zubair, I'm coming to you now. In solving the problem, perhaps it will also be important, it's just as important that we understand the nature of the problem. You talked about de-radicalizing the people. But let's first understand the ideology of the Ansaru. Our guest on Sunrise Daily last week talked about how their ideology is not so clear, that they kidnapped, he referred to an incident where they kidnapped a French national, and in exchange for their release, the Ansaru demanded a change in the policy direction to favor Islam. Can you please articulate what you understand to be the ideology of the Ansaru? What alternative to Islam are they teaching the locals that they're recruiting into their fold?
Well, Ansaru, the one in Kaduna State, a splinter group of Boko Haram, which took over, the vast forest, particularly in the central part of Kaduna State, particularly in Birnungwari and the local government areas. You see, the ideology is simple. They are saying they are, in those areas as a kind of renaissance of Islam. But, using, an active way, or I can say they are using a coercive way of making, their kind of ideology known to the people. For now, nobody knows, the motives of this Ansaru. But you can see that the Ansaru that derailed, a train and also holding over 66 people, in a forest located, around whether between Birnungwari and Zamfara State. You see, these people, what they are saying is they want some of their people, to be released in exchange of those hostage. So therefore, de-radicalization in this part of thing is to make the locals understand that these people will not give you protection because you don't know what agenda they have or what kind of, what kind of motives they have against your people, because we don't know exactly now what kind of...
A bit clearer, do they advocate violence as an approach to adopt to achieve their goals? And is that the danger that Kaduna citizens should be worried about?
Yeah, at the moment, they are not advocating for any violence, but they are anti-state. So anything that has to do with the state, these people are antagonists of the state. So therefore, anything about government, these people are antagonists of that. You understand? If some people are antagonists of government or anything that has to do with the normal way of running a government, then you know that these people are more or less more dangerous in the long run than it is either the government now, with the help of the locals, particularly the community leaders, to sit down and iron out a kind of plan. One, to now de-radicalize the place and also to give security to these people. Because these people are vulnerable.
Yes, one can only wonder, Mr. Abdurrauf, how quickly that response will come from all sides of governments, whether at the federal or at the state level, because just as you have said, the danger is right there in our faces and time is ticking very, very fast. Add to that mix, the elections are ahead of us. But for now, we have to thank you, gentlemen, for being a part of this conversation. Agiole Abe is a retired Commissioner of Police and former Commissioner of Police in Kaduna State, as well as Pioneer Commandant, Mobile Force Training College, Ilara in Osun State, and former Deputy Commissioner of Police Operations in Anambra, as well as Zubair Abdurrauf, who is a community...
Thank you so much for your patience to watch from the beginning to the end. I hope you have learned something from the video you have just watched. The video you have just watched is to bring information to your doorstep and for educational purpose. It is not to demonize anybody. Let us watch continuously and see who can be able to make a sense out of every nonsense we are seeing. We must continue. We move. It doesn't matter what they do. It doesn't matter what they say. They will kill us. We will kill them. At the end of the day, Biafra is here. Thank you for watching. If you have not subscribed to the channel, please kindly subscribe to the channel. Click the notification bell so that you'll be notified each time I upload a video. You will be among the first to receive it. Thank you and remain blessed. Bye-bye. See you again.